I'm so confused, Tal. How is that possible? Isn't that the whole purpose of smart
I think
contracts
this
that
is
once you deploy?
might be an aha moment for the industry, for the community to say, okay, like we understand that keys should be kept in a very secure manner. However, hardware wallet is not the right form factor
If
to
people,
do it.
there are hundreds of millions, if not, I guess, billions of dollars being secured by these smart contracts that until a few days ago, at least I thought were immutable. For anybody who has assets in these sorts of solutions, if you were them, what would you be doing right now? On Friday, February 20th, Bybit, one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, was hacked to the tune of nearly $1.5 billion. Not only is this the largest attack ever in crypto history, it's probably the largest single theft in the world. We're joined now by Tal Be'eri, Zengo's co-founder and CTO, to review what happened to get a sense of what it looks like moving forward. Thank you, Tal, for joining us today.
Ari, it's great to be here and doing one of my favorite things, trying to explain sophisticated hacks in a non-technical manner, although there will be some technical parts to it, but not too heavy, I hope. So what are we going to cover today? We'll talk about and bring the audience up to speed on what we know based on the released information on like don't assume any previous knowledge. Of course, you need to know a little bit about crypto, but we'll talk you through who are the main players in that attack. And we'll talk about the Web 2 aspect of this hack, the web server, and so on. And also the Web 3, the on-chain information and implication of this attack, and also try to give something about the bigger picture. What does it all mean in the end? So let's start with the beginning. Sounds good. So as you can see, like this crypto hack went the blast residues and the discussion expanded even not just was not limited to crypto Twitter or crypto press, but made it to the main media. This is Wall Street Journal. This is the biggest haste in crypto haste, but also the biggest haste in all financial, including fiat. So because $1.5 billion is quite a lot of money. And who is Bybit that was hacked? So Bybit, according to Wikipedia, is the second largest cryptocurrency exchange. And according to CoinMarketCap data, it ranks Bybit indeed in the second place. I would say that for sure, it seems like Binance is on the first place, and Bybit is with a company of others well-known exchanges. Like the volume is really comparable to Coinbase exchange, which is surely a big exchange. So Bybit is as big as Coinbase, at least according to CoinMarketCap. So it's big news. And just the day that they were hacked, so there was it was published that their Bybit's AUM surpassed 15 billions. So mainly in Bitcoin, $6 billion worth of Bitcoin, also $5 billion AUM of Ethereum and other coins. So it's out of the 15 billion, like let's say 2/3 are Bitcoin and Ethereum with kind of equal parts, some a little bit more for Bitcoin. As we saw, Bybit holds a lot of Ethereum, more than $5 billion. And to securely store it, this is the paradigm of a cold wallet. And what makes a wallet cold is that it's not connected to the internet. So usually it means that the keys are on devices that are not connected to the internet. And in Bybit case, it was indeed stored on hardware devices, ledger devices. However, it was not a completely cold wallet, as the UI of the DApp was served from a website, and the whole infrastructure of that cold wallet was provided by Safe Wallet, which provides a cold wallet with multisig. Multisig means multi-signer, so such that the spending from that wallet is controlled by multiple people, therefore diversifying the risk, distributing the risk. It's not a single point of failure, each of them.
Tal, I'd like to pause for a second, if you don't mind going back and asking for the kind of the layperson's perspective, how a safe multisig works, because this might be a new signing or a new way to store crypto assets for folks who might not be used to using that, right? The average person probably has a crypto wallet on their phone, or they have a hardware wallet. And if they want to send Ethereum from point A to point B, right, they put in the Ethereum address and they click send and they approve it. A safe multisig doesn't work like that. So I'm going to share my mental model, and please correct me if it's wrong. But essentially, you go online, you go to Safe's website, you create an account, and then you essentially create a new crypto wallet online through a smart contract. And then you connect using Wallet Connect with maybe one of one, but probably like 2 different wallets or 3 different wallets. And then you decide how many wallets need to sign a transaction or approve a transaction in order for those assets to move. So instead of being an approvals process where you're just transferring, ETH from address 1 to address 2, you're signing something on chain. And that's what allows for the transfer to happen. Is that a correct understanding of this setup?
Yeah, in a high level, it is. So when you create such an account, after the onboarding, a smart contract that represents the wallet logic is deployed to the blockchain, and then interacting with it, you do that via a DApp, a distributed app, which actually it's a Web 2 website, usual website that suggests a transaction for you to sign, and the transaction is sent to the blockchain after all of the signature are aggregated. So, like, if you have 3 signers, then each of them needs to sign within this website. And when the last signer signed, then it can be broadcasted by the last signer to the address of the smart contract. And if all signatures are properly signed, then the smart contract actually do what you asked it to do, probably to move funds from that address to another address. So,
okay, thanks.
Cool. So who are Safe Wallet? It's a well-known company that are building such smart contract based wallets for a few years now. Origin from Consensus, and they're highly respected to be a secure developer of secure custody. And earlier we mentioned that Bybit used Ledger hardware wallet to store the keys that was used to create that signature, and we know that because of of Safe tweet when the incident started to unfold. So they said that temporarily removing the native ledger integration, as this was the signing device used in the targeted Bybit attack. So we know Bybit was using, in fact, ledger devices. So this is like the exposition. We know there are like 2 players on the defensive side. There's the exchange, which is Bybit, that holds a lot of Ethereum, and they're using Safe Smart Contract Wallet in order to securely store it, and what they thought that was a cold wallet. Okay.
And Tal, I'm gonna pause here because I think you're probably gonna go into this next. We've actually learned a lot in the last 24 hours. Originally, we thought, and I think Bybit thought, that their signing process was um, uh, confused or changed, and there was malware installed on user devices when they went to sign. And it was all happening on the Bybit side of things. But what it turns out is it's actually more complicated than that. And it goes all the way back in the infrastructure stack to how everything works on the safe level. Is that correct?
Yes, this is correct. I think that probably, Bybit had their suspicion, like they knew they were signing on, like I'm sure the signer said, okay, that's not what I signed on, what I see on chain, but they didn't know what was the core reason for that, and probably like maybe they suspected it was something in safe, but they didn't want to point fingers before they have concrete evidence. And I have to say, like, they did a really great effort in the, not just in communication, they were very transparent, but also like actual things they did. And one of the things they did, they invited two different forensic cyber forensics team to find out what happened, and each posted a report just the other day, less than 24 hours ago, really shedding a new light on what actually happened there. So let's see what were the findings. Okay, so it was quite a surprise for us to learn that actually the real hack happened on the safe side of this equation, on the Safe wallet. And one of Safe developers got its machine hacked. Safe was not too verbal about it, or verbose about it. They just said it got hacked, and said that the attackers usually use 0 days or a social engineering attack together. But for the matter of analyzing this attack, is not that important. So one developer machine got hacked. Developer machine is a fancy name for, let's say, probably a developer's laptop. And from that machine, the attackers were able to inject malicious JavaScript into a safe production environment, into the website that actually is presented to all of Safe user. And specifically, it was hosted on AWS S3 bucket. And it's kind of an easy target, because in the end of the day, it's just like a web page. It's very textual, so it's unlike other kind of code that you need to compile to build. In that case, you can as an attacker, you can very surgically insert your malicious code just there. By the way, the UX is, of course, at the JavaScript. The original website is, I don't know if it's an open source, but even if it's not, then it's very much viewable by attackers and everyone else. So there's no need, like the attacker knew in advance, like to where it would inject their code. They didn't need to learn the code as they got in, because it's publicly facing. And that code changes the logic just for Bybit signers. So what this script does, so you can see on the
So
left hand.
Tal, just to understand, this was done where it could have technically targeted anyone using Safe, but the hackers for some reason decided to only target Bybit.
So to be precise, every user of Safe was exposed to that exploit code. That exploit code just decided that if you're not Bybit, if you're not a Bybit address, then I'm not bothering with you because I have a bigger fish to catch. So I'm going after that $5 billion or $1.5 billion prize. I don't mind like smaller prizes that would just reveal the attack sooner. But in theory, every safe user that connected during the time that the attacker planted their code was vulnerable. In fact, you can still find this code in using the web archive, the Wayback Machine that indexes all kind of important websites. And you can see there that the crawler of web archive got that malicious code. Of course, it didn't operate on it because that bot was not Bybit. And I will not go into the specifics of this code, but like just the general idea based on the forensic report that was released. So without looking into the specifics, we can see that in red, you can see the code that the exploit added to the normal operation. And you can already see all kind of things that looks like Ethereum address. And this is exactly the expected, the Bybit expected signers. So only if such signers connected to the website, then the exploit would go off. So this is a fancy flowchart for that, but this is like the most important thing that if statement is safe is target. So if it's not, then like you do the normal thing. And if it is, then you modify the transaction into the malicious payload, okay? So what can we learn from that, like the general learnings from that? So attackers target devs because devs has access to production environment that the attackers is actually targeting. So developers are a stepping stone towards that coveted production environment that the attackers are aiming for. By the way, it's an interesting Slowmist report released this week say often this attacker, I don't go too much into attribution, but it's already named to be Lazarus in North Korea, sometime offering developers all kind of luring them with bounties, crypto bounties to code review some open source projects. And as a result, these developers are victims, are socially engineered into downloading this project to test them and so on and so forth. And this project themselves contains some backdoor. So they use all kind of creative ways to get into developers' machines. So if you have an organization, if you're developing something in crypto, you should mind your developer security. And we also see that web is more susceptible to hijacking. So for example, in Zengo, our main form of wallet is a mobile application. And in mobile application, there is quite a complex build process. And also, you have to submit your binary and your signed binary to the stores. So Apple Store and Google Play Store and so on. So you cannot just, even if an attacker takes over a developer machine and bypass all the security mechanism that prevents from pushing code into production, but somehow get past them, still there is a lot of bureaucracy left until it reaches into the hands of the victim. But in web, like if attacker gets access to production, they can just inject their textual JavaScript without too much of difficulties there.
All right, so Tal, that's really helpful. It's a great takeaway for any teams, anyone listening, especially if you're a dev, or even if you're not, but you have access to different environments in your company, to be particularly wary of people watching out and asking for help or assistance, or willing to pay out for some sort of small bounty. This is quite likely, if not in this situation, the vulnerability that caused it all. Definitely a vector that we've seen been used before.
Yeah, for sure. So probably you might ask yourself, okay, this all thing happening on safe side on the Web2 interface. So, but like how would the Bybit operating the signers operating that account? What was their user experience? So this was actually it's great meme, but it has a lot of truth to it because as we saw, Bybit was using hardware devices in order to keep their keys air gapped, but there is a disadvantage of that attitude and solution is because these devices are low power devices, small screens. So even if they had bigger screens, they're they cannot create. They're not a computer, right? They cannot. It's hard for them to create a meaningful representation of the transaction, and also they are not connected to the internet by design, so they cannot be assisted. So as a user, you would see something like that. You'd say, okay, I'm going to send some message hash that, okay, it seems like an arbitrary sequence of alphanumeric characters. And so there is no way for you to know as a user, like if it's like this is the hash that you wanted to sign or not, because it just, we're not computers. We cannot know if this is the correct thing, right? And so we don't want to, victim blaming. Like, even if I was presented with that hash, I wouldn't be able to say, okay, is this the right thing or the wrong thing? So how can I know? And it's interesting that now Safe on the website, they're showing, this is a new thing, it wasn't there before, explicit warning about it, saying due to recent security incident, it's important to always verify transaction that you are approving on your sign wallet. You can verify it, don't sign it, which is, it's a good thing to say, and it makes a lot of sense. But like this paradigm of working with the DApp and signing with the hardware wallet was kind of, everyone praised it over the internet. Like, say, okay, how to be secure in Web3? You should put your keys on a hardware wallet. And since the hardware wallet does not allow the signer to see the transaction itself or what it means. I think this is might be an aha moment for the industry, for the community, to say, okay, like, we understand that keys should be kept in a very secure manner. However, hardware wallet is not the right form factor to do it. Maybe it was okay for a structured transaction when you have from to, and a simple device could just show that. But if you're doing something, complex, such as Web3 smart contract, that's no longer the case, and this limited hardware device is not the right form factor. Okay, so let's get to the malicious transaction and what it actually did. Like, okay, as we said, the attacker just changed, like, as a user, as a signer, you probably want to do one thing with this wallet, maybe do some routine money transfer, or just, I don't know, changing something within the setup or something like that that you need to sign. But actually, what the actual transaction that the attacker injected with this malicious JavaScript, if you were Bybit, it changes the contract logic from that multi-signer into single signer that is controlled by the attacker.
I'm so confused, Tal. How is that possible? Isn't that the whole purpose of smart contracts? That once you deploy a smart contract, you can't change it? What's going?
Yeah, I agree. It's confusing because sometimes we hold this rope from both ends. So are smart contracts immutable? Well, yes and no. So technically they are immutable. So what you write on chain cannot be changed. However, the last few years, there's new design patterns called proxy that allows in practice to allow smart contract to be updated. And this was much needed because like the naive assumption that you can just deploy a smart contract and it will be good forever was proved to be a bit too naive, because sometimes you have security vulnerabilities or something in the world changes and you just need to update your contract for good reasons. So to technically solve it is instead of deploying on chain the actual final contract, you just deploy a proxy contract that points to an actual contract that is stored on chain. But if you want to upgrade it or change it, you just change, like you don't, the original contract stays a proxy contract. It just points to another place, which, in the end of the day, violates the whole promise of immutability. So in practice, smart contracts are not immutable, actually.
So let me see if I get this, and please correct me if I'm wrong. What basically happened from what we see so far and what's been reported as of today is a hacker was able to get access to a developer's computer from Safe, and then simply change some letters and numbers that were then sent to the AWS server instance, and that told this smart contract, oh, don't use that smart contract, use this one instead, look somewhere else, and completely ignore all of the security and all of the setup that was already built for the original signing process.
Yeah, you got the main thing, like the attacker is, you still need the original signers to sign the transaction. Like, okay, so what happened is when the signers saw they were signing one thing, that maybe transferring money or doing some kind of maintenance job, they actually were signing something else, and that something else, instead of just transferring money, was actually changing the whole logic of that contract to be something completely different, to be a contract in which the attacker are the sole signers of the contract and practically taking over that contract.
Okay, so when they were signing and they thought that they were just approving the movement of ETH from point A to point B, or whatever they were approving, in fact, what they were approving is change who you're pointing to next time. You're upgrading. I don't, upgrade's not the right word, but you're upgrading to the new smart contract, which in this case was the one controlled by the hackers.
Yeah. This is the same process as in with upgrade, but this is a, let's call it, malicious upgrade. So we can see it a little bit in the code. So this is the original code that Bybit wallet code. And by the way, it's, anyone can see it. Let's see, like it's on let's see it. Etherscan. So let's go a little bit backward. Oh, I had everything. So this is the contract, but I could have, let's just look at the transaction. I can look at the transaction in Etherscan. So this is what is nice about this hack, is that, you know, for Web 2, you need access, just because Bybit were very nice, and it's not an address, it's that I'm looking for, it's transaction hash. So for Web 2, we have the information just because Bybit was very transparent about the result of their investigation. But for Web3, like, we have everything on blockchain, so we can see everything. So this was the transaction that actually changed the smart contract. So we can see that this is the Bybit called Wallet 1. This is the contract, and we can see the contract code, and we can see it's a proxy code. This is the code, and that code is actually loads the code from the storage slot 0, and then execute that code. So this is actually a proxy code, and what the attacker did, and we're going back to the slideshow, is this is the exploit transaction, and we're using here Tenderly to see the exploit and to see the calls there. So this is the important part of the hack. It's near the bottom. So in the beginning, the contract just verified the signature and so on, but this is where the magic happens. It's where the attacker just update that storage slot 0, in which the code is stored, to another value, which is a contract that was deployed by the attacker, and just changes the logic from that fancy multi-sig safe smart contract wallet into attacker control that says, okay, if I'm coming from the attacker address, then I'm controlling everything that is in that wallet. And this is exactly what happened. So someone will say maybe simulation would have helped here. So I don't know if simulation was on for that transaction. So simulation is a way to solve that visibility gap. It said, okay, I'm signing on something that I don't know exactly what it's going to do, so let's simulate it. But usually simulation, it's not some magic. Like, technically it works. And by the way, we're releasing a report about it, supported by Ethereum Foundation grant on this matter, that really goes deep into simulation technology. And in simulation, you just execute that transaction on the side, not on the blockchain, and collect the event logs and look for event logs that you know. So it's mainly in simulation, you look for transfers and approvals, that this is standard events that's usually associated with money transfer, because you want to see that you're not signing a transfer that you didn't authorize. But in this case, first of all, like, there was only one log. That transaction only generated one log event, which was execution success, which is kind of the expected code for that operation. So maybe there was some sophistication here. Maybe the attackers only change such execution operations, so that the simulation would match the expected value as the operators expect to see, or maybe it didn't, but at least it doesn't look too suspicious. It's okay, what I get from that execution, okay, the execution success. So It's not something you say, oh, I'm sending a lot of money into other places. This is also why I think the attackers, instead of just trying to send straight away the money, because as we can see, like there was, even if they made just one transaction, they get a lot of money out of it. It's maybe there was additional security mechanisms in Bybit or Safe, or the attackers suspected or feared there will be some mechanism that look into the transaction, said, okay, you're now sending a lot of money out. We are not authorizing that. So what they did something that looks more benign or unexpected. They just took over the whole contract, and then they were able to just skipping to do transactions such as, okay, now that the attacker controls the whole account, they can just send the transaction to their Bybit Explorer to their own account, and the first transaction took 400K of ETH, which is almost I don't know, it's $1 billion transaction or sort of. And just to say, like I kind of skipped about details, like there's more to it technically, but I think the most important part is to understand that the attackers were able to completely bypass the smart contract wallet multi-signature by, again, collecting this signature to change it into a single signer wallet controlled by a smart contract deployed by attackers. So what can we learn from that? Like the bigger lessons is that in practice, smart contracts, including smart contracts that are wallet, but smart contracts that include also ERC20s, NFT, and so on and so on, they are not really immutable. Okay, we learn it again and again. And this is not a big surprise. Like if you ask someone is, Solidity, smart contract, say, okay, this is a known design pattern. It's not like this is a backdoor that Safe introduced. This is a very common practice. In fact, it's considered to be best practice. But, as a user, like Ari, when you heard like how like you were very surprised, like say, how can I change smart contract? The whole point of smart contract is it's being unchangeable, immutable. And it kind of reminds me, like you remember last year when Ledger said, okay, we are introducing a backup service that takes the private key from your wallet and set it to 3 different secure whatever backup and so on and so forth. So people were highly surprised that this is even possible, because they thought, okay, this is hardware immutable, and then they learned that in practice you need to do all kind of upgrades, and this upgrade is upgrade to the firmware, which is again software. So again, like rogue software can jeopardize the security of your private keys, even if they are on hardware. So I think this is kind of a aha moment also for smart contract, because everybody knew it, like or at least all savvy people knew it, but now it's more of a common knowledge that this can be changed. And
I'll tell you the thing that I mean stresses me out a little bit now, like knowing this is the thing that I thought was immutable isn't. But when you mix that with the fact that all of this is happening on chain, it's not that you have nowhere to hide, you just have no privacy. And so, it must have been quite easy for the attackers to even start to plan out this attack. You can see, which wallets are associated with Bybit in this case, I guess which wallets tended to approve transactions on chain. So which ones it's all there, right? There's no, if you create any sort of security custodial setup, everyone can see it because it's part of an on-chain smart contract.
Yeah, you know, it's part of the deal. This is the known, like you say, okay, like it's known, it's not good to have security through obscurity, so you have to assume that like the security does not come from the fact that the attacker doesn't know how your setup works. But I agree that in practice, like having some part of, you know, of secrecy in practice, that helps. So yeah, the attacker can do all the reconnaissance, full reconnaissance in advance, and know exactly from the contract and from on-chain information, like who are the signers, and also like their habits and when they do it and how often they do it, and so on and so forth. So surely that helped them in launching this attack. And so in contrast, like MPC, multi-party computation, which is the method that we in Zengo use, and also many others, Fireblocks, and also Coinbase, many institutional grade solution are using is having multi-signature through cryptography, advanced cryptography. And this is what we've been doing. And like it has its own pros and cons. So MPC is much more rigid in the sense that, as you saw in smart contract, in practice, if they're using the proxy design pattern, they can be upgraded. And in MPC, for better and worse, you cannot upgrade it. Once you created a distributed setup with the keys and so on, you cannot take it back. You know, of course, there can be hacks that hacks all the places that the keys are there. This is no different from multisig, in which attacker takes over all the signers, but they cannot change the control mechanism of, okay, each of you needs to sign. And so this is better. And also the who are the signers, it's more of a mystery, because the in the end of the day, like on the transaction, an MPC signed transaction is no different from a single signer signed transaction. So you get a little bit of more privacy, anonymity, and more of it's harder for the attacker to know your setup in advance and detect even changes to the setup as they happen. And another point it's worth highlighting, that Web3 visibility, which we coined the term ClearSign, also have trademark for it, is crucial, because and also not easy to achieve. But in the end of the day, if your setup depends on the integrity of a Web2 system, this is connected by definition to the internet, it's a web server, then your whole setup, even though you did invest in smart contract, and let's assume it was immutable, and your keys are in air-gapped solutions such as Ledger, but in the end of the day, you have a single point of failure that is connected to the internet, and this was exactly the single point of failure that failed Bybit and Safe. So this is important to note. So this, we're kind of at the end, and just to recap, we looked at the web, like we talked about who is Bybit and Safe and what are the interactions between them. We learned about the attack on Safe's user interface, web user interface, Web2 interface, that injected selectively changed the transaction for Bybit. Like it could have changed the transaction for every Safe wallet user, but they were focused on Bybit. And when they saw a Bybit signer trying to sign something, the attacker code changed the transaction to be signed to a transaction that actually takes over the contract. And once the contract was changed, then the attacker had full control over it. So what does it mean? Let's kind of repeat. So I think, there's a famous adage that says, when people get this the choice between security and dancing pigs, they would choose dancing pig every time. And this is right. Like most of the time, we just want like when we think what is important in a wallet, oh, that he has that shiny user experience, this and that, support this and support that, and looks better, and so on and so forth. But this kind of incident reminds us, like, we should go to the basic and start with a very secure wallet, because this is the most important thing for you as a user, and we tend to forget it. But luckily, there is every once in a while there's some hack that just resets us and reminds us what is important. What is the most important functionality of a wallet is keeping your digital assets safe. This is the most important thing. And I think also it's shows, like, I think we'll see a negative sentiment towards exchanges because of that Bybit hack. And I'm not saying that exchanges have worse security controls than other solution. They're just a bigger target. Like when you're a 15 billion dollar beast, then you have target mark on your back, so it's highly targeted. So people would, I would assume, as happened in the past when there was an exchange issue, will go and try to say, I want to get my assets off exchanges into something I have more control over it. Another thing highlighted by this attack is the smart contract failure. That it's kind of, it's something that was known for advanced users all the time, that smart contracts are not really immutable. But for the layman, say, okay, I'm trusting smart contract because they're immutable, and also people saying this is like the best thing, and it's kind of simple claim. Okay, you can trust it because no one can change the code and hack you. But in fact, you see, it's in practice, the code can be changed and changed in a malicious way to hack you. So I think some of the false understanding of smart contracts will go away, and people would look for alternatives. And one alternative that stands out, full disclosure, we're supplying such solution, is multi-party computation-based solution in which the multi-signature comes from, not from code, but from cryptography. But by the way, this is not a new solution. This is the de facto standard in which, advanced institutional customers are using, whether they're using Fireblocks or Coinbase using that internally, and also other exchanges. And another thing is, if you manage serious money, then you need serious procedures. So I think there was a lot of hit on Bybit, saying, look, when you going around with the Ledger wallet or any hardware wallet with manual developer doing things very manually, it might be okay if you're small, but when you reach certain size of assets, then you need to have a dedicated solution. I think we'll see more and more dedicated solution for that, like business-oriented solution. It's not just something you take, some best practices for personal user, and you kind of put a duct tape over it, and create your own hodgepodge of a protocol. Like you need a solution that also dictates a certain procedure and so on. So we'll see more of that. Certainly, once you get to a maturity level, certain maturity level, I would say when you're in the billions, you're way past that point. I say, like, even in hundreds of thousands of dollars, you need to have some sort of dedicated solution, and not just trying to do the best you can do with consumer grade solutions. And another corollary which we learned is how the wallet, like, beside of the fact that very manual and not easy to operate, seem to be inadequate for Web3 for the reason that they were designed for the Bitcoin world, in which you had a very specific structure, or a rigid structure of transaction that they could somehow display it, and they're just out of their league in Web3 environment. This is not us saying that. This is Adam Back, one of the smartest people in Bitcoin, that says, look, that he says it's not about ledger or a specific hardware wallet. Hardware wallet is just not a good solution for Web3 environment. So I think this is the main lessons from that incident.
There are hundreds of millions, if not, I guess, billions of dollars being secured by these smart contracts that until a few days ago, at least, I thought were immutable and required multi-signers in order to move or to access. For anybody who has assets in these sorts of solutions, if you were them, what would you be doing right now?
Well, this is really a hard question because, look, I think, what raises the most your cyber insurance premium is the fact that you were hacked once. Because if you were hacked once, then attackers are likely to return, because the lightning doesn't strike the same place twice most of the time, but hackers do, because they already know, like, they know, like, how you work, and they already have the infrastructure, like they have the transaction to chain and so on and so forth. So I would say, like, the risk is, maybe there was always that risk, but now we realize that the risk is very high in Safe. But like, it all depends. So it all depends on the alternative. I'm sure that Safe would learn from that experience and suggest upgrades to their solutions. But I'm a bit skeptical, as we said, about, again, the immutability of the smart contracts. So I'm not sure it's a great idea to begin with. But surely, like, Safe would upgrade their security. But until then, again, it all depends on the alternative, because, like, what would be the alternative? I'm not sure that moving everything into a ledger. I don't know. I would go with but maybe I'm biased. Go with the institutional grade or a business grade solution based on MPC. That's what I would have done. And also, as another byproduct, you also get the same mechanism for both Bitcoin and Ethereum and any other asset that you have. It's not like, okay, for Ethereum we have smart contracts, and for Bitcoin we have something else, and for Solana we have smart contract, but this is different smart contract because it's not EVM. So I think MPC can be a good solution, but again, it all depends on the specific needs of the customer. So I don't want to say, like, you need to do X, but you need to reconsider your options there.